A man inserted his hand inside her and pulled out whatever he could find. An incident permanently carved in the history of India. Not as a moment of pride, but as a night that exposed the brutality women continue to face. A crime so barbaric that an entire nation demanded the harshest punishment for those responsible. Today, I walk you through yet another case of crime against women. This is the Deathlore, bringing you the spine-chilling story of the Nirbhaya gang rape and murder. 16 December 2012. Delhi was in a rush and was unbothered as usual, unaware that something was coming their way that would break them from within. A 23-year-old girl, Jyoti Singh, was a physiotherapist intern and the eldest of three and the only daughter of a father who worked 3 jobs to support his family. She had graduated from Sai Institute in Dehradun and was completing her internship at St. Stephen's Hospital in Delhi. Her parents had invested years of sacrifice in her education, hoping their daughter would achieve the future they never had. That night, she was out with her friend Avnindra Pratap Pandey, a software engineer from Gorakhpur in Uttar Pradesh. According to their plan, they watched the movie Life of Pi in Select City Walk of Saket and headed home, unaware that the journey back home would become one of the darkest nights in Indian history. Their final destination was Dwarka. However, finding transportation proved difficult. No auto rickshaw driver was willing to take them directly there. One driver suggested that they travel with him to the Munirka bus stand, assuring them they would easily find a bus to Dwarka. The advice seemed reasonable. At around 9:30 p.m., shortly after arriving at the bus stand, a white bus pulled up beside them. When Jyoti and Avnindra asked about its route, the men on the bus confirmed it was heading towards Dwarka. With no reason to suspect otherwise, the two boarded the bus. The bus was nearly empty. Apart from Jyoti and Avnindra, there were only 6 men on board, including the driver and the conductor. Reports suggest the pair paid a total fare of 20 rupees before taking their seats as the bus pulled away from the stand. For the first few minutes, everything seemed usual. The bus was travelling at a decent speed. But then, Avnindra noticed something disturbing. The bus was no longer following the route to Dwarka. As he began questioning the driver about the change in route, the men on board did not answer. Instead, they started taunting the couple, asking why they were out so late at night. Before Avnindra could fully process what was happening, the atmosphere turned violent. The men rushed towards him. They began beating him relentlessly. One of them retrieved an iron rod from the front of the bus and struck him repeatedly. Avnindra fought back as best as he could, but he was outnumbered 6-1. The assault became overwhelming for him. Within moments, the attackers overpowered him, restrained him, and gagged him, and made him unconscious. Next, the men turned their attention towards Jyoti, who had been desperately trying to stop them from attacking Avnindra. They dragged her to the rear of the bus and began assaulting her. She was beaten with the same iron rod that had been used against her friend before all 6 men, including the driver and the conductor, took turns gang raping her. Even in the middle of the attack, Jyoti fought back. She resisted her attackers and managed to bite 3 of the 6 men, leaving behind bite marks that would later become crucial forensic evidence linking them to the crime. But the brutality did not stop here. One of the attackers used the iron rod to inflict devastating internal injuries to Jyoti. The assault caused severe damage to her abdomen, uterus, and intestines. According to initial police reports and several media accounts, one of the juvenile assailant allegedly inserted his hand inside Jyoti, causing catastrophic injuries to her internal organs and genital tract. The injuries were so extensive that the portion of her intestine were pulled out of her body during the assault. The level of violence inflicted on Jyoti shocked even experienced medical professionals. By the time the attack ended, Jyoti had suffered life-threatening injuries and was left fighting for her survival. To further worsen the condition of the duo, the assailants robbed them of their belongings before throwing them onto the roadside near the NH8 Mahipalpur flyover in South Delhi, barely covered and critically injured. As the attackers drove away, Jyoti and Avnendra were left lying on the cold roads, fighting for their lives. Numerous vehicles passed by, but the victims remained unnoticed until a passerby finally spotted them and alerted the police. According to Avnendra's account, valuable time was lost before they could be taken to the hospital. He later alleged that there was confusion among responding officers regarding jurisdiction and that they had waited for an ambulance that never arrived. Avnendra also recalled helping Jyoti into the PCR van himself after it became clear that no ambulance was coming. Eventually, both victims were transported to Safdarjung Hospital. Upon arrival, Avnendra was taken to the casualty ward for treatment of his injuries, while Jyoti was rushed to the gynecology and trauma unit. It was there that the doctors began to understand the full extent of the injuries she had suffered. When doctors at Safdarjung Hospital examined Jyoti, they were confronted with injuries of an utmost unimaginable severity. She had suffered extensive internal trauma as a result of the assault and had lost a massive amount of blood. Medical teams immediately recognized that her condition was critical and that every passing minute could mean the difference between life and death. According to medical reports, significant portion of her intestines had been severely damaged and several internal organs had sustained catastrophic injuries. Despite being in excruciating pain and fighting for survival, Jyoti remained conscious and was able to provide investigators with crucial details about her attackers. As doctors battled to save her life, news of the horrific crime slowly began to spread beyond the walls of the hospital, setting the stage for what would soon become a nationwide outcry. As doctors fought to save Jyoti's life, on the night of 16 December 2012, the Delhi police began one of the most high-profile investigations in the country's history. An FIR was registered against the unidentified assailants, and a special investigation team was formed under the supervision of the then DCP South Delhi, Chaya Sharma. Consisting of around 40 personnels, the team was tasked with identifying and tracking down the attackers as quickly as possible. The crime started at the Munirka bus stand, and so the case was registered at the Vasant Vihar police station, from where the special team was operating under DCP South. The investigation began with very little to work with. The victims had been attacked inside a moving bus, making it difficult for investigators to immediately identify the crime scene or the perpetrators. However, despite the brutality of the assault, the attackers had made several mistakes. Using the statements provided by Jyoti and Avnendra, investigators began reconstructing the route taken by the bus on the night of the crime. Police team reviewed the footage from traffic cameras and toll checkpoints across the city, attempting to trace the vehicle's movements. One detail soon stood out. The investigators discovered that the bus had travelled along the same stretch of road multiple times during the night. According to reports, the vehicle crossed the same route twice while the assault was taking place inside. A fact that later helped investigators narrow down their search and establish the movements of the attackers. As investigators pieced together the night's events, they discovered that Jyoti and her friend was not the first victim of the group that evening. Earlier that night, a man named Ram Adhar had reportedly been lured to the same bus under the pretext of being given a ride. Instead, he was assaulted, robbed, and thrown out near the IIT flyover. At first, the incident appeared unrelated. In reality, it would become one of the most important breaks in the entire investigation. The revelation about Ram Adhar's robbery raised troubling questions in the years that followed. Critics argued that had the incident been acted upon more quickly, the bus and its occupants might have come to the attention of the authorities before Jyoti and Avnindra boarded it later that night. Whether the tragedy could have been prevented can never be known for sure, but the possibility remains one of the most haunting what-ifs in the entire case. Ramadhar's testimony provided police with a crucial timeline and an additional description of the vehicle. The bus itself quickly became one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. Witness accounts and CCTV footage revealed several distinctive features. It was a white chartered bus fitted with yellow curtains and red sheets, tinted windows, and the word Yadav was also displayed on the vehicle, indicating its association with Yadav Travels. These details proved invaluable. By combining witness statements, Ram Adhar's testimony, CCTV footage, vehicle records, investigators were able to narrow down their search, identify the bus, and trace it back to the owner and driver, Ram Singh. What initially appeared to be a separate robbery had ultimately provided investigators with one of the crucial leads that helped unravel the entire case. Armed with this information, police launched an intensive citywide manhunt. Officers visited bus depots, transport operators, parking lots, garages across Delhi, comparing vehicle records and examining buses that matched the description provided by the victims. The description of the bus proved to be the breakthrough investigators desperately needed. After reviewing CCTV footage and following multiple leads, the police were able to trace the vehicle back to its owner, Dinesh Yadav. During questioning, investigators learned that the bus was being driven by a man named Ram Singh, who lived in Guru Ravidas camp in R.K. Puram. Police teams immediately moved into the area. What they found was the very bus they had been searching for. Parked inside the camp was the white chartered bus that had carried Jyoti and Avnindra on the night of 16 December. For investigators, it was a crucial breakthrough. The vehicle was seized and sent for forensic examination by the CFSL. The bus was parked at the Tyagraj Stadium's parking lot for the forensic examination. While it is standard for forensic teams to examine vehicles, investigators decided not to keep the bus at Vasant Vihar police station, the station handling the case, because it was surrounded by massive public protests. Fearing the bus might be vandalized by the angry crowds, the police secured it at the stadium instead, where experts began searching for every possible trace of evidence left behind by the attackers. The recovery of the bus gave investigators their first direct link to the men responsible. Within hours, Ram Singh was arrested, and the investigation rapidly gained momentum. Using information gathered from the vehicle, witness statements, and subsequent interrogations, police launched a series of raids that led to the arrest of the remaining accused over the next few days. In less than a week after the crime had shocked the nation, all 6 accused were in police custody. Investigators quickly identified all 6 men involved in the attack. With all 6 suspects now in custody, investigators began piecing together who these men actually were. The first accused was Ram Singh, the 30-year-old driver of the bus. His younger brother, Mukesh Singh, aged 26, also among the attackers. The other adult accused were Vinay Sharma, Pavan Gupta, and Akshay Thakur. The 6th accused was a 17-year-old juvenile, Mohammad Afroz. because he was under the age of 18 at the time of the offence. His case would later be handled separately under India's juvenile justice system. None of the accused had prior connections to Jyoti or Avnendra. The attack was not planned against them specifically. Investigators concluded that the victims had simply crossed paths with the group on the wrong bus at the wrong time. While investigators were working to identify and arrest those responsible, Avnendra was treated in the casualty ward for multiple fractures and other injuries. Although serious, were not considered life-threatening. Jyoti remained in a far more critical condition. Doctors at Safdarjung Hospital performed multiple surgeries in an attempt to save her life. Following her fifth surgery, she was reported to be on life support and stable, but her condition remained critical. On 26 December 2012, 10 days after the attack, the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh approved her transfer to Mount Elizabeth Hospital in Singapore for advanced medical treatment. The following date, on 27 December, Jyoti was flown to Singapore in a specially equipped air ambulance during a 6-hour journey. During her treatment in Singapore, she suffered a cardiac arrest. Although doctors were able to revive and stabilize her, she lost consciousness and never regained it. According to the CEO of Singapore Hospital, at 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time on December 28, 2012, Nirbhaya's condition at Mount Elizabeth Hospital was extremely critical. Despite multiple surgeries and extensive treatment in both India and Singapore, Jyoti's condition continued to worsen. She suffered severe organ failure and remained on the life support as doctors fought to save her life. At approximately 12:15 a.m. Indian Standard Time on 29 December 2012, Jyoti succumbed to her injuries and passed away. 13 days after the brutal attack that had shocked an entire nation. The decision to transfer Jyoti to Mount Elizabeth Hospital in Singapore soon became a subject of intense debate. Given the severity of her injuries and her fragile condition, many questioned whether she was fit enough to endure a 6-hour air ambulance journey. Several medical professionals involved in or familiar with the case criticized the decision, arguing that moving such a critically ill patient carried significant risks. Some even suggested that the transfer appeared to be influenced by political considerations rather than purely medical ones. Though government officials maintained that the move was made in an effort to provide the best possible treatment available. In the days that followed, the decision remained controversial, with supporters viewing it as a last attempt to save her life and critics questioning whether the transfer had placed additional strain on an already critically injured patient. Jyoti's death sparked a wave of anger, unlike anything India had witnessed in recent years. Thousands of people poured into the streets of Delhi and cities across the country, demanding justice for the victim and stricter laws against sexual violence. Protesters gathered outside India Gate and government buildings, while candlelight marches were held throughout the nation. The case had transformed from a criminal investigation into a national movement. As public pressure mounted, the government fast-tracked the case. However, before the trial could conclude, one of the accused died in custody. On 11th March 2013, Ram Singh, the driver of the bus and one of the principal accused, was found hanging inside his cell in Tihar jail. Prison authorities ruled his death as a suicide, claiming that he had used clothing to hang himself. His family and lawyers, however, rejected this explanation and alleged that he had been murdered. Despite the controversy surrounding his death, the official conclusion remained suicide, and the criminal proceedings against him came to an end. The trial against the remaining accused continued. On 8 December 2013, the prosecution had finished presenting its evidence before the court. On 10 September 2013, the court delivered its verdict and found the 4 surviving adults guilty of rape, murder, kidnapping, robbery, criminal conspiracy, destruction of evidence, and several other offences. The adult accused had been charged under multiple sections of the Indian Penal Code. 3 days after the verdict, on 13 September 2013, the court sentenced all 4 surviving convicts to death. The juvenile accused was tried separately under the Juvenile Justice Act because he was 17 years old at the time of the crime. The juvenile accused was tried separately under the Juvenile Justice Act because he was 17 years old at the time of the crime. In August 2013, the Juvenile Justice Board found him guilty and sentenced him to 3 years in special reform facility. The maximum punishment permitted for a juvenile offender under Indian law at that time. His sentence became one of the most controversial aspects of the entire case. Many people believed that the punishment did not reflect the brutality of the crime, while others argued that the law had to be applied according to the accused's age at the time of the offence. After serving his sentence, the juvenile was released in December 2015. Even after the death sentence was pronounced, the case was far from over. Under Indian law, every convicted person has the right to exhaust all available legal remedies before a sentence, especially a death sentence. Over the following years, the convicts filed a series of appeals, review petitions, curative petitions, and mercy petitions in an attempt to change their convictions and sentences. Each of these legal remedies were examined by the courts and the authorities concerned. Ultimately, the Supreme Court upheld the death sentence, and the mercy petitions submitted to the President of India were rejected. The repeated filing became a subject of public debate. Many reports and commentators argued that the convicts were using every available legal avenue, not because they expected to turn over the verdict, but because each petition delayed the execution and brought them more time. Whether that was their intention or not is something only the convicts themselves can truly answer. However, many people could not ignore the irony of the situation. The same men who had brutally cut short the life of a young woman were now fighting desperately for every additional day, every additional hour, and every additional moment of their lives. After years of legal debates, battles, the final obstacle was removed. The date of the execution was set, bringing one of the most notorious criminal cases to its final chapter. Reports from Tihar jail described the convicts as deeply distressed in their final hours. Jail officials said they spent a restless and sleepless night before the execution. Some reportedly refused food, while others broke down emotionally as the reality of their fate became unavoidable. According to accounts from the prison staff, the fear of approaching execution had left them unable to sleep. Finally, on March 20th, 2020, at 5:30 a.m., inside Delhi's high-security Tihar jail, Mukesh Singh, Vinay Sharma, Pavan Gupta, and Akshay Thakur were hanged simultaneously after their final plea was rejected during late-night court hearing. It was the first execution in India in several years and marked the end of a legal battle that had lasted more than 7 years. Outside the prison, hundreds gathered waiting for the outcome. Across the country, many people expressed relief that the case had finally reached its conclusion. Nirbhaya's parents said that justice had finally been delivered to their daughter. For many Indians, the execution symbolized the end of one of the most painful and emotionally charged criminal cases in the nation's history. But Nirbhaya's legacy extended far beyond the execution of her attackers. The public outrage that followed the 2012 crime forced India to confront the issues of violence against women on an unprecedented scale. In response, the government established the Justice Verma Committee, whose recommendations led to sweeping legal reforms. The Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, often referred to as the Nirbhaya Act, introduced major changes to Indian law. It expanded the legal definition of sexual offences, creating new offences such as stalking, acid attacks, sexual harassment, increased punishments for many sexual crimes, strengthened investigation procedures, and allowed the death penalty in certain cases involving extreme sexual violence. Fast-track courts were also established in many areas to speed up the trials involving sexual offences. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the case was not only the brutality of the crime, but the mindset revealed afterwards. In interviews and public statements, some of the convicted men and those associated with their defense offered explanations that ranged from victim blaming to attempts at justifying the attack. Poverty, frustration, the victim's presence outside at night, and her resistance during the assault were all cited as reasons or provocations. None of these explanations altered the fact of what happened that night. Instead, they exposed attitudes that many Indians found deeply troubling. For many observers, the case was never only about 6 individuals on a bus. It was about the beliefs and prejudice that allowed violence against women to be excused, minimalized, or blamed on the victims themselves. I remember K.R. Ramesh Kumar, a former union minister in Karnataka, saying, "When rape is inevitable, lie down and enjoy it." Only if I could question people with such a mindset, I would really ask them, how amazing would you feel while being raped? Being touched without your consent? How much would you enjoy some random person ripping off your clothes? How thrilling and amazing would it be to lock yourself inside your house after being raped because you fear the people outside? How your enjoyment would be at its peak when someone suddenly grabs you. Because who are you to resist? The woman is supposed to put a full stop to her life because some piece of shit could not control his lust. I'm pretty sure that not one girl has never experienced some form of harassment, misbehavior, or unwanted attention. Thank you for listening to me. If you liked this episode and want to hear more, please subscribe to the Deathlore YouTube channel and press the bell icon. Follow me on Spotify and don't forget to follow me on Instagram, where I share some crazy insights into the case and announcements about the upcoming episodes. Stay sane and alive until we meet again next Thursday. Goodbye.